Bonjour classe, bienvenue. Aujourd'hui, c'est le 27 avril 2020. Today is April 27th, 2020. Aujourd'hui, on va apprendre le passé composé avec avoir. So today we are going to relearn the past tense with avoir. The reason I'm so specific saying that it's the passé composé with avoir is because the passé composé actually has two parts. Verbs that take avoir and verbs that take être. But we'll get into that later on. So right now, we're going to just focus on the passé composé with avoir. So I made this little note sheet to kind of help us streamline and keep our thoughts in order. So we're going to fill this in together, but I'm going to need your help with it. So let's go ahead and just jump right in. Looking at this sheet, let's answer this first question. It says, how many steps? So looking at this sheet, how many steps do you think that there are to the passé composé? Oui, deux. Il y a deux étapes. There are two steps. So let's write in our number two. And then we're going to answer this one in just a second. So it says combien de verbes, how many verbs? We're going to answer that in just a minute. So the first step to the passé composé with avoir is obviously your verb avoir. You have to conjugate avoir. So I'm going to write down avoir, and I'm going to write down present tense, just so we can remember that we're not putting avoir in the passé composé. We're putting avoir in the present tense to figure out the passé composé. So let's conjugate avoir real quick as a quick refresher. How do you say I have? Oui, j'ai, so a. And to say you have is tu as. Très bien. Ils, elles, ont a. Nous avons. Vous avez. And ils, elles ont. So it doesn't have a Z at the beginning of these, but remember when you have that S, you make that link to make that Z sound. So now that we have avoir in the present tense, we need to move on to the second step of the passé composé, which in the passé composé is the past participle. And I'll talk about that in just a second. So let me write down past participle. I know it looks kind of like a big word. So basically, the past participle is the done or did or had, etc., etc. If you were to translate the passé composé into English, it would say I had and then your verb. So for example, I had made my bed. That made is the past participle. Or I had studied. Studied is the past participle. Now, in English, we don't walk around saying, oh, I had studied yesterday. We just say I studied. So in English, we drop this whole part right here. But in French, in order to make the passé composé, you have to have both steps. So you have to remember that there's two steps. I like to think of the passé composé as walking up the stairs. So if you're walking up the stairs and you forget this first step, you're going to trip. So you have to remember to have both steps. Now, to make the past participle, it's quite easy for most verbs. Verbs that end in er, first we're going to drop the er and then add accent aigu. For verbs that end in ir, we drop the ir and add I. And then verbs that end in re, we drop the re and add u. So we drop all of this and then add all of this. So for most verbs in the passé composé that have avoir, they conjugate like this. There's only a couple that are irregular, and it's just these ones that I listed here. So we're going to go through and figure that out together and list what verbs are irregular and their past participles so that we're all set. So the first one, let's talk about être. Être is the verb to be. I'm also going to write what these verbs mean so you have that little list too. So it's the verb to be. In the past tense, it's been, like I had been happy, or etc., etc. The past participle of être is été. Été with accent aigus, like the word summer. Faire is the verb to do or to make. So to do or to make. And faire in the past participle is fait, like one of the conjugations. Avoir, the verb to have, in the past participle is eu, eu. Vouloir is the verb to want, And the past participle is voulu. That's a U. Boire is the verb to drink. Boire in the past tense is bu. So, like a ghost. You're going to see that boire, voir, and lire all conjugate pretty much the same way. There's just one little difference. So, voir is the verb to see. And voir in the past tense is vu. So, you see what I mean by only one little difference? And then lire is the verb to read. And lire in the past tense is lu, like I had read. Okay, so first part is done. Before I move on, I want to talk about the verb avoir. So you might be a little confused saying, well, how can we have avoir twice? Because we have to have this avoir, but then I'm going to have this avoir too. So in the past tense, if you're using both, then it's technically like saying, oh, I had a cat when I was little. Like I said earlier, in English, we just dropped this part, so it's just I had a cat. But in French, you have to have both parts. So I had a cat when I was little. Okay? Pleuvoir is the verb to rain. Like it had rain. So pleuvoir is the verb to rain, and it is pleu. Pleu. Pouvoir is the verb to be able to, like to be able to, like I could do something. And pleuvoir in the past tense is pu. Like P-U. Oh, man, it stinks. Mettre is the verb to put. We just learned that verb, to put. Mettre in the past tense, pretty easy. Me, like in the song, do, re, mi. Prendre is the verb to take. And prendre in the past tense is kind of similar to mettre. It's pris. Okay, so you could say, I had taken French. So, j'ai pris le cours de français. I had taken French. Or I had put the plate on the table. Or it had rained yesterday. Or I was able to do something. Okay, so now that we have how we conjugate our regular verbs up here and how we conjugate irregular verbs right here, let's talk about some expressions and how to make it negative. So, il y a means what? I'll give you a second to think about it. Il y a, what does il y a mean? There is or there was or there are. So, if this means there is or are, then il y a eu. What do you think il y a eu means? Remember, eu is the verb to have. So, it means there had been. Or like there was. Okay? Now, to make something negative, when you're making something negative, we know that you need ne and pas or some form of that. So if we have ne and pas, in ne and pas, the verb normally goes right here. So now that we have two verbs, where are we going to put our ne and pas? In the Passé Composé, to make something negative, you put the helping verb, which is avoir, in between the ne and pas. So then everything else goes after. So it'd be ne, your helping verb, pas, and then your past participle. So let's do an example. Let's say I had not read. I had not read. Je. Now we need ne. Because it's a vowel, we're going to use the N apostrophe. So N apostrophe, then your avoir. Okay, then your pas. And now we need the second step. So we're done with this first part. Now we need the second step, because right now this is just I have not. And now we need the past participle. If we're going to say I had not read, we need the verb lire, the past participle lu. So je n'ai pas lu. I have not read. And we could say I have not read the book. I have not read the story, etc., etc. So I just answered one of this question a couple minutes ago. Looking at our steps and looking at our sheet, how many verbs are in the Passé Composé? Is it just one? Is it two? Or is it three? It's two, right? Because we have avoir as our first verb, and then the past participle is our second one. So it's two verbs. And avoir is technically considered the helping verb. So you might hear me say the helping verb a lot, and then the past participle is the second part, so PP for short. So helping verb and then past participle. So that's pretty much it on how to do the Passé Composé. I can do some examples and then I'll end the video and I'll let you guys get on with the rest of the lesson. So let's do some examples down here. Let's say that I had studied. So to say I had studied, we have je. Now we need our helping verb. So helping verb is avoir, so j'ai. And then studied. Our verb is étudier. Right? So étudier is our verb. We're going to drop this er and add what? Oui, accent aigu. So it's going to be accent aigu. So this is going to change to j'ai étudié. So j'ai étudié. I had studied. Let's do another example. Let's say that we had something. So nous. Now we need our first step, our helping verb. First step is avons. Nous avons. And let's say that we had responded. So responded is the verb répondre. So répondre is the verb. It's an RE verb. So we're going to drop the RE. And then what do we put on the end for RE verbs? Look up here. We add a U. So nous avons répondu. We had responded. So that's it for the Passé Composé. It's quite simple to form. You just have to remember that there are two steps. So you can't forget this first step and you can't forget the second step. So first step, avoir is the helping verb. Conjugate it in the present tense. Second step is your past participle. If it's a regular verb, meaning if it's not one of these, then you add e accent aigu for verbs that end in er, I for verbs that end in ie or ir, and u for verbs that end in re. If it's a verb that doesn't follow this pattern, it's listed here. So if it's not a regular verb, it's one of these ones, and it's irregular, and the past participles are all right here for you. If you have any questions, please reach out. Make sure that you do the practice questions for today, and I will see you again on Wednesday.